So, I'm the Doctor, and you are?
Oh, come on. Everyone on planet Earth knows who we are.
Oh! My head is so stupid, you're...
Pull to open.
Pull to open!
Yes, and what do you do? State your name, rank, and intention.
The Doctor. Doctor. Fun. Here come the drums!
So here it comes, the sound of drums. Here come the drums, here come the drums.
Hello, and welcome to Pull to Open, an ongoing quest to watch all of Doctor Who, the entire television program, in random order. I'm Pete Paschal.
And I'm Chris Taylor, and what an episode we have for you today, because what don't they know? This time, there's four of us. We would love to welcome officially to Pull to Open Liam and Rob from the Cloister Bell podcast. Welcome.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Hello. Thank you very much for inviting us.
We're delighted to be here.
Yeah.
I'm so delighted you're here. I'm also so delighted that I just found out before we went on the air, you're from my home part of England, where I grew up in the northeast, and you're right there. So you're taking me right back, and my accent will probably slip back into Geordie before we know it. So just extra fantastic to have you along, and thanks for staying up so late for this.
No problem. Yeah. So I'm curious why you invited us on. Actually, like, did the randomizer pull our name up, and you were like, "Oh, not the Cloister Boys."
We've installed a new randomizer for other Doctor Who podcasts, and no, Pete.
It's my ongoing side quest, to ensure that we meet every other Doctor Who podcast that in the podcast universe, and then I want to have a massive multi-podcast adventure.
Yes,
with all of us. So, like, this is basically like the two doctors, in this case, two podcasts. And we'll just keep doing that until the time streams for us, and all Doctor Who podcasts become one for a while.
And then we'll have a special at the end where we come along and just save you from falling out of a tree or something, or from being hit by a car.
You're definitely one of the podcasts I listen to on a regular basis. I find that your commentary is often exceeds my level of nerdiness, and you really pulling in like,
wow.
It's interesting. I feel like I'm underqualified a little bit.
You what? Sorry?
I feel a little bit underqualified to be a Doctor Who podcaster sometimes, but...
Oh, well, as we've said many times on the show, it's like this show is so large. Doctor Who is so large, has so many facets to it. It's really impossible to keep it all in your head at once. So this is why... I feel like, we have the power of four here. We've quadrupled. We have a hive mind. Yes, we have a Doctor Who hive mind right here.
And at the very least, we have someone to fact check us when we say something blatantly wrong without correction. We have people to correct us this time, because that's sort of one of our trademark things, at least in the last few weeks.
It's on our bingo card.
Yep. Speaking of the last few weeks of the pod, hey guys, where we were on previously on Pull to Open. About 3 episodes ago, we were getting into 2023 with a fine sort of siesta in the 1920s England with the Davison adventure, the last pure historical of the classic series in Black Orchid. From there, we were pushed forward in time almost to the present day, but we hit New Year's Day 2021 and encountered the Jodie Whittaker adventure, Revolution of the Daleks.
Which was not the last holiday special.
Not the last holiday special.
As we said at the time, we forgot even the Daleks.
Yeah, lots of Daleks in those holiday specials recently. But there were no Daleks in the holiday special from 2011, which is where we were last time. We went back to the Matt Smith era for the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe. And once again, it's special after special after special, because this week, guys, we have been pushed to one of the 2009 specials, I guess, which the autumn special.
But intended to be a holiday special.
Yes, so it's the one of the last David Tennant adventures. It is what we're going for is The Waters of Mars. And that is David Tennant's second last story. as everybody knows. And so it's funny, like I was looking at this, and correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, I got someone to correct this if I'm wrong. I think this is the second actual story to visit Mars. And this is like the only other one that where they actually go to Mars is Pyramids of Mars. Now tell me I'm wrong. Someone tell me I'm wrong.
You're so wrong. But I don't know why.
Is there another story where they go to Mars? Because all the Ice Warriors stories don't actually happen on Mars.
There isn't a Big Finish story, does it? Called Red Dawn.
Yes, Red Dawn does. Yep.
And we would go to Mars again in the Capaldi era, right? For the that Victorian story,
Empress of Mars, right?
Empress of Mars. That's the fella.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I mean, and Pyramids of Mars, we only really have their word that it's on Mars. Like, it's not exactly as if you're seeing giant red deserty vistas. You're just, I mean, even when we went to Pyramids of Mars' podcast, we were. I think I was very confused about which bits were actually set on Mars, supposedly. But this is real full-on 100% red planet, every cliche of a red planet colony you can think of. This is Mars done as Doctor Who has never done it before or since.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they really go for it.
Ambitious, yeah.
They mention Mars. I mean, they come close to coming to Mars in Ambassadors of Death. I'll just throw that out there. But they never actually go on Mars. At some point, there's just a big ship, I think, that they end up in, and they never actually land on the planet. There's just stuff coming back from Mars in that one.
You know, not to dovetail with other media, but like I what I've noticed is there's so few representations of media of like the first. There's lots of first Mars missions that we see already on Mars, as we do here in the Waters of Mars. So few representations of like the first landing on Mars.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Outside of like there's a National Geographic special series called Mars where they do it. I think that's the first time I've ever seen it represented in visual media. It's interesting. The Doctor Who had the opportunity here, but didn't quite get there.
Yeah, there was. I'm trying to think. What was that bad version of? There were a couple Mars flicks before the Matt Damon one. What was that one called again?
The Martian. Yeah,
that's similar to this.
Yeah, that was similar, but there was always like there was that really terrible Brian De Palma one.
That was the one I'm thinking of. With Gary Sinise.
Yes, but they had already landed on Mars at that point in that movie, and they were talking about it over square Coke cans in their backyards. I remember that. I was really annoyed by that.
Is no one going to mention Total Recall?
No one is.
Oh, yeah.
Get your ass to Mars. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. But again, very much later in the development of the colony, right?
Yeah.
Way down the line.
Well, speaking of developing colonies, guys, we want to go on developing the Polta Open colony of our
Fill in your
Open.
Cheesy Segway squares in your bingo card now. Wow.
And that's what I wanted to tell everybody. I wanted to lead us off with the bingo card. Guys, if you didn't tune in last week, one of our super fans has developed the very first, and I'm called declaring it official Polta Open bingo card, where you can actually follow along the podcast and X out all the squares. And you've already had at least 2 cheesy segues, so smash that square on your bingo card. But no, if you want to follow along, we're going to have the link in the show notes. You can also see it on our Twitter, which is at Pull2Open63. Thanks again to the Josen one, Joe on Twitter, for making that card. And moving on quickly in the feedback loop. Hey guys, this is a podcast. Podcasts really thrive on reviews. We love to hear from you guys, and really reviews really help us out. It'll increase our visibility in the Apple Podcast app. You guys know that, right, Rob and Liam? You want reviews. You want people to review you. And while you're leaving reviews for Polta Open, hey, there's another one called the Cloister Bell Podcast. You can also subscribe and leave a review for those guys, too.
That'd be lovely. We're still in single digits on Apple reviews.
Oh, well.
You got to have a feedback loop right at the top of the show. Boom,
yeah,
boom, boom.
This is... I'm going to review it right now. So we'll do it live. We'll do it live on air. Review along with me, folks.
How easy it is. Just leave a couple emojis.
I'm rather foiled in this plan by not having my phone next to me. But in theory, in my mind, I'm writing a review of the Cloister Bell podcast right now.
In fact, we've just recently had a 4-star review, haven't we, Liam?
What was that, sorry?
We've just recently had our first 4-star review.
Whoa.
Yes.
Ooh.
we were flying with all the 5 stars, although and then we slightly dipped. I think it's still quite impressive because, from what I can gather, the person who gave us the 4-star review is quite specific in what they're looking for as a podcast, and the fact that he ranked us quite high. Actually.
I got you.
They only marked us down because we were reviewing some Big Finish.
But he said we're better than most podcasts.
Yes, so I think that's it's also, the fact that we're better than most podcasts. I took that. I thought that was really
Hey.
Praise it shall be accepted, of course. Anyway, yes, you have discriminating listeners, and that's great. And we also have some of those, and we have a review, which we like to read out on air. That's one of your special prizes for leaving a review. You don't just get to support the podcast; you get to hear your own words read on the podcast. And here I'm going to read one from someone named Harry M7/12, someone from Australia. Hey there, Harry, and they leave a review that says "Pull to Open 10 out of 10, 5 stars." Thank you, Harry. This podcast offers fantastic in-depth discussions on all things Doctor Who and have opened my eyes and changed my perspective on certain episodes, whilst also intriguing me to watch episodes I have yet to see. Pete and Chris offer a fountain of knowledge and facts and have fantastic chemistry and complement each other very well. I often find myself joining in the conversation whilst listening to the podcast when driving. In short, this podcast is a must-listen to for anyone, even with a passing interest in the show, not just hardcore fans like myself. Keep up the great work, guys. And he gives us a whole bunch of emojis, a blue box emoji, a screwdriver emoji, and 2 hearts. You betcha.
Nice.
I'm starting to think this might be Russell T. Davies.
Yes.
In disguise. He's got a little burner account.
Yeah, throw a diamond in there. That's very much his style. Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you, Harry M7/12. And now I know. Now I know when I hear the voices in my head during this podcast that are joining in with the conversation. Now I know what name that voice has. It's Harry M7/12. So thank you for that. I thought it was something I was going to have to see my therapist about, but no. You're joining in the conversation for us. Perhaps we should leave more of a space for Harry to insert his answers to our questions during the podcast. But yeah,
absolutely.
Or maybe Harry could just hit the pause button and have his own conversation.
Oh man, it'll be like Blink, where you kind of like you play it back later, and it's like you're having the conversation, and then it all makes sense. Maybe 30 years from now.
Well, it did get away from me. Yes, exactly. Sorry, Blink reference.
Yeah. No, we got it.
We got it.
We were just giving Harry time to respond.
Yes. Well, I can hear what you're saying.
Yeah. All right, guys, you too can hear your voice on the podcast, sped in my voice or Chris's voice. And all you have to do is leave a review. And we also love it when you guys leave us a Doctor Who title in the form of an emoji. Also our thing. We don't have one this week, but I'm sure we will soon enough. Moving on. Hey, you guys on Spotify, we're doing our new thing where we're using the poll feature there, so you guys can also rate the show. So we rate the show, rate rather the episodes that we do, the stories that we do at the end of every episode. You guys can do that too, and we're also asking questions about what you guys think was the favorite explanation for, say, the Clara Splinter or the evil plot succeeding, our sort of trademark 4 questions to Doomsday. You guys can have your voice and vote on those. And we're going to do that week after week. Only available on Spotify, only on the mobile app. And you can also rate the show there too. So please do.
So excited to check that out as a Spotify listener.
So also, again, reminder, we are on YouTube and we're doing a big YouTube push in 2023. We are really getting our channel built out. Season 3 continues to get filled in. The last one, actually, when you hear this will be the episode we post right before Valentine's Day. And sure enough, one of the only episodes that we have left in our Season 3 to fill it out completely is, in fact, The Girl in the Fireplace. So, folks, go ahead and listen to that one. That is a very fun Valentine's love story, it turns out, even though it wasn't really made for Valentine's Day. But we're making it a Valentine's Day love story.
Yeah. Play that podcast to your date and they'll know you care.
And we really would love to get 1,000 subscribers in 2023. So please, if you subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or Apple or whatever other podcast app you have, please also subscribe on YouTube. It's really going to help us out. Plus, you get to see us. Hey, that's cool. You can see Rob and Liam too here.
I subscribed to you today.
Nice. Hey. Thank you. Awesome.
Only 2 weeks after I subscribed to us. Oh, nice. All right. So yeah,
so you're not too ashamed.
Exactly. So yeah, on TikTok, we just did our TikTok thing.
Yeah, we just did a TikTok live. We talked about who counts as a companion. We've got the start of a good system that I think we're going to flesh out and fully explore. And you know what? I'm just gonna have it canon when we do it. It's what's gonna happen. We're gonna send that right to RTD.
Yeah, I love it. And Liam and Rob really helped us think through that. I think that was some great ideas for how we structure this question of who is a companion, and we'll probably do a separate episode on that soon. Thanks for that, guys. And we also have some TikTok comments.
We do.
We can all respond to.
Got some TikTok comments of the week. So we just posted a bunch of videos on our Revolution of the Daleks podcast. Lots of discussion about the sort of, I guess I'll admit, sort of flip commentary I had about the fam in that episode, and that they gave the Doctor a hard time for not being around for 10 months. So a lot of good discussion, because some people agreed, some people disagreed. There was a lot of back and forth, but I wanted to call out these particular comments. I've got a few comments here, so because there's a lot of sort of layers to what the fam was going through, and particularly Yaz's reaction to the Doctor not being there, because he actually pushes her away. And if you recall that episode, so here are the comments. So someone with the handle The Coffee Witch 241 says, "I love how it showed a stark difference in the relationship between Yaz and the Doctor compared to the Doctor and the rest of the fam." Which excellent point, and I think that was kind of the point of the scene. And but I think the second comment here really emphasizes this in a sort of a different way, because it's from Webwegie says, "I really wish Yaz and the Doctor's relationship was actually built upon across seasons. Could have been phenomenal." Mm-hmm. And I get that. Yeah, I think that's true, because it's like you could see them sort of tacking on sort of the romantic relationship between the two of them toward the end of that run. I don't know. It feels a little tacked on to me, and you feel like had they done something with that earlier, it could have been more interesting. Instead, it was this sort of long build up to almost nothing, which is kind of a big missed opportunity, I think. I don't know, guys. What do you think?
It's interesting, because how many series did they have altogether? 3. And the like conclusive connection between them didn't come around until like near the end. And for me, that's not something I was really wanting to see. I didn't know I wanted to see it, so I didn't think that it was going to be a thing. And then it just came out of the blue. Romances are kind of more interesting when they're kind of seeded from the start. And is it a possibility? You kind of need to have a longing for it. To enjoy
sort of will they or won't they?
Mm.
And there's nothing from those early episodes that suggests it, is there?
I think it, because funny enough, Rob and I have discussed this a few times on the podcast. I've forgotten when I started to have an inkling that they were possibly going to go down this romantic route, but I at some point cottoned onto it. But what I always said was that I felt that was coming from the actors more than the writing. And I think at some point they were probably aware that the writers were going to go down this direction. So obviously they, as actors, decided to imbue their performances with that. But the issue was that it was never really backed up with the writing. So when it does actually get written into a story, it does seem to be completely out of the blue. And I think that's one of the... I don't want to get too negative about it, but I think that's one of the issues that I have with the Chris Chibnall era, that, for all his strengths as a writer prior to Doctor Who, which was all about character development and writing all this stuff in, it didn't seem to emerged during this era. So I think it was possibly there as an idea from the very beginning. But yeah, it doesn't really emerge until quite late on. And I don't think, and as you said, it doesn't really have that payoff. As soon as it's written there and it's overt, but I can't go down there. And
yeah, because it sort of raises our hopes if we ship the Doctor and Yaz in Eve of the Daleks, immediately dashes them in Legend of the Sea Devils.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it's just sort of and then it ends with let's have ice cream.
Yeah. By the time it started, we already knew further down the line it was going to end.
Yeah.
It had no future.
Yeah, so just like, why would we get invested? Yeah, I think you're right about Chibnall. It's funny that he does talk that big game about like how he had the whole arc of his tenure on the show planned out. With the timeless children sitting right in the middle of it, and there was a build up to it, coming down from it. But you don't really see it. Like it does give you the sense that he's seeing the story differently than the rest of us are, and that there are these parts that feel tacked on and adapted, and I feel like we really want to know more about what his thinking was. Like we're going to be talking a little bit in the Waters of Mars about this hefty tome, The Writer's Tale, in which you know more than you ever wanted to know about the process of Russell T Davies writing Doctor Who, and what I want to know is a lot, so that's a lot. But you don't get that with Chibnall at all. He doesn't let you into a lot of his thought process.
Definitely missed opportunity there, and when they took advantage of it, did not really deliver. But we could talk about Doctor and the Yaz all day, guys. But we've got to move on, guys. So just to close out the feedback loop, please follow us on TikTok at Pull to Open. We're going to be doing lives right before our tapings every Sunday. And please be one of our followers, one of our 10,300 followers now. And
turn on notifications too.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Again, on Twitter,
we're too polite to that.
Twitter, we're at Pull to Open 63, and same handle on Instagram, Pull to Open 63. More photos, more discussion, more things happening there. So follow us there. Okay, guys, this is usually the point in the show where we talk a little bit about other business, and there usually isn't a lot these days because Doctor Who is not being currently made. There's not a ton of Doctor Who news, but there was one little tidbit that RTD dropped in the past week, and I'm not sure if this is in Doctor Who magazine.
Yeah, it is.
Is what?
Is this the one about the TARDIS?
Well, I think it's about
this the other bit of news.
I think this is the one. Is the I want to talk about Umbrella Guy.
Walking into the shop, yeah.
So I guess this is one guy in the trailer that dropped on Christmas Day that no one's talked about because you don't see who it is. His back is to the camera, and he's basically all he's doing is walking into a shop and closing the umbrella. But RTD,
very ominous.
Yeah, he's kind of just said like, "Oh, no one's guessed who this is. It's a huge guest spot. It's apparently a big character in the show." And I don't know if that's but there's not much to talk about here other than like, okay.
It's RTD is so like he so gets off on fan speculation, right? And he's like, "Hey, you guys, you missed this. Come on, hey, here it is, serving it to you on a plate."
Well, let's indulge him.
Who could it be?
Who had an umbrella in the series? Who was known for his umbrella? Hey,
Sylvester McCoy. Seventh Doctor confirmed.
It's a little tall. Maybe he's on stilts.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, Umbrella Guy. Any thoughts, guys?
No.
No, none.
Yes.
I will say,
got to rank. Just going through. Well, maybe it's not someone who had an umbrella in the TV series. Do we have to go through every Big Finish adventure or every Virgin New adventure? Apart from Sylvester McCoy, who's because we got Beep the Me from the coming in, which I'm really looking forward to. I think that's fantastic.
Yes.
So, I mean, is it someone who glaringly obvious? Is it the Seventh Doctor? And it's sort of like, well, it's out there in the open. It was glaringly obvious. Or is it someone like ridiculously obscure? But, this sort of conversation wouldn't be fun if we didn't go down the ridiculously obscure route. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, the normal explanation, like, it rains a lot here. If you look in the back of my car, I've got about half a dozen umbrellas, everyone's got them.
I'm throwing this out there. Hugh Grant. Do you remember that? Do you remember, like, there was the rumor he's going to take over? He was going to be the next Doctor for like 5 minutes, and I think it happens every time. But
I know that's sort of a tradition. It's a fine tradition to think that Hugh Grant's going to be the next Doctor.
If that was based on something other than absolute pure BS, which it probably was, but if it wasn't, maybe he's Umbrella Guy for reasons.
Okay. Maybe. I'm just looking at this picture. It could be him. It's got a bit of a Hugh Grantish look to him. But I did want to... So there was one other piece of news that I'm also looking at in the Radio Times website here, that Stephen Moffat said that he hinted that he's not going to write for this season.
I saw that clip where he said he would be... I've forgotten the exact word, but it would basically be the acting of a lunatic.
Yes.
To go back and write. That's not a denial. So, Mr. Moffat, are you a lunatic?
Yes, exactly.
You know this to ask after that.
Yes, I'd have to be insane to do that. It would be career madness, he said. To go back in a junior capacity to a show I used to run, yes, I think he protests a little too much in that. I think that's... I mean, if you were RTD, how would you not be texting Moffat every single day? Yeah, go on. Totally. Are you going to write one now? How about now?
Remember that
as long as it's not Chibnall.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they are good pals, but yeah, I think Chibs is taking a well-earned break.
Yeah,
absolutely. Next season. Yeah.
Still, I totally agreed. Not a denial.
Indeed. All right. Is it time?
Right. Well, I was going to do the cheesy segue of the denial and the Nile and the water in the river being something about rivers and water on Mars. And hey, we're out here to talk about the waters of Mars.
Oh my God! Someone get Peter chiropractor. I think he's overstretched himself for that segue. Wow. Well done, sir. Well done.
One of my proudest moments ever is I made a whole lift of people groan with that appalling joke. Someone was having a conversation going, you're in denial. I couldn't resist it, but surely denied us in Egypt. Everyone groaned, but it amused me.
That's the great thing. Great thing is when they groan and then they start laughing despite themselves. You're like, gotcha.
One episode of a future episode of this podcast will just be puns until everybody starts laughing uncontrollably. Watch for that one in about 2027. All right, guys.
Yes. But you too will be laughing uncontrollably shortly when we have our summary.
That's right. We start every commentary of the stories we talk about with a little segment we like to call TLDW. Too Long Didn't Watch, Too Long Doctor Who, where one of us summarizes the plot of the story we're doing in record time. And this week, that person is one Chris Taylor.
And I'd just like to ask Liam and Rob, before we go into this, would you like to take this spot? Because we'd like to open it to guests.
Guest through that again. We did that one time, the first time we had a guest. I mean, if you guys are up for it, I'm not going to say no, but it's...
I'm telling you what, if you, I'm desperate here. If you send me your Venmo account, I will gladly send you some money taking over this TLDW. No, that's okay. I got this.
So we have a new standard here. So what we do is we allocate 30 seconds for every 25-minute episode and a full minute for every 45 to 50-minute episode of the new series. Now, this is an unusual one because it's a special. And so the runtime's a little longer than a regular episode of the new series. But it's not that long. It's actually 60 minutes. So, funnily enough, identical to the runtime of The Doctor and the Widow of the Wardrobe. So what we did for that one was a minute 15. And so I think that's the precedent. That's what we got to go with. We got to do a minute 15. So you get those extra 15 seconds here.
Okay. Yeah.
I think this is all right. How do you feel, Chris? I think you got this.
I think given that I watched this a week ago, immediately after the last podcast, it's going to be a bit tough. Even though I've been reading about it all week, it's not the same as the exact story. So, but that does help, I think, because it kind of squashes it down in my memory to exactly what I'm just about to say. This might actually run too short.
Oh, wow.
Let's see.
Well, ready or not, here comes the official pull to open summary of The Waters of Mars in a minute and 15 seconds. And it begins now.
Okay, so the Doctor is on his own and he lands on Mars and he's in his spacesuit and he gets out and he sees, what is this? It's the first ever Martian colony and they're out there doing stuff and messing around with solar panels. But what's happened? Two of them in the biodome in the gardeners, the area with all the plants. Something's in the water then, it's going wrong and it's turning them into zombies and they're leaking water from their mouths. And then it starts to infect the people in the base themselves. And the Doctor knows all this. He knows that they're going to die. And there's going to be a famous nuclear explosion on Mars. So he's resisting trying to save them. He keeps wanting to get away, but the crisis gets worse and worse and worse. And then there's one of these water dribbling zombies in the sick bay, and it seems to keep spreading. But it's okay. The water's not going to get into their drinking water because it was this special filter in the thing. But the zombies get through anyway, and the water drips through, and they have to blow up the station. But the Doctor saves them at the end. He takes them back to Earth. But the Lindsay Duncan character is the commander of the Martian mission. Kills herself anyway because she knows she wasn't supposed to live, and the Doctor sees the Ood at the end, and he realizes that he's gone too far, and he's not actually the Time Lord Victorious, and he's about to die. And the other Martian colonists that he saved run off into the snow, and time, and nothing happens to Gadget.
What's that? Nice work.
Yeah,
Ooh, thank you.
If
I'd attempted that, I would have forgotten some key plot points.
There's not that many plot points in this one, though, is there? That's sort of the first thing that I'm realizing, kind of looking back on it. That's actually a very simple story, especially if you understand the Doctor Who base under siege template, right?
Yeah. I think you did a great job of not getting down any rabbit holes, but like you say, I don't think there were that many to go down. You could have easily talked a little bit about the flood and the little bits on the Ice Warriors and stuff, and we'll get into all that here. But yeah, like you say, I remember honestly the first time I saw this, definitely liked it then, but also thinking it was almost over before you knew it. Yeah, especially when the explosions start to happen and there's the big twist at the end, and it's not like it's not satisfying, but you're just a little like, oh wow, yeah, I didn't realize we were that close to the end. I was just so into that.
Yeah, I guess it sort of feels it hits different if you're kind of binge watching the season, right? And then it slots in very nicely in this sort of growing sense of doom as it approaches the end. But if you're just watching it in isolation, and we kind of all were watching it in isolation, right? Because it came out in the autumn. I'm going to use the British word.
Good man.
And but it was supposed to be a Christmas episode. It was supposed to come out just a week before the end of time, right? That the Tennant's final story. So yeah, it does have that lead in, and that's also what you find when you read up the background to it and the writer's tale. Like it very much RTD is almost entirely seeing it as a lead up to this thing, and the Martian side of it gets a bit squashed down, from Phil Ford's original script. And RTD is just desperate to bring this in under budget, so they have more money for the finale. So it does stand in the shadow of the other stories around it. Liam and Rob, what did you think of watching this again? How recently had you watched this before, and how long has it been for you guys?
Well, for me, it'd been an awfully long time. I cannot for the life of me remember when I last watched it, which is quite staggering, really, because I've always rated the story incredibly highly, going way back to when I first watched it in the fall, using the American term.
Hey, look at this cross-cultural understanding here.
Yes, it's marvelous. In 2009, so yeah, so it's quite surprising actually. But it always stayed in my head and very fondly remembered it because of. Yes, you're right that the story is very is quite simple, but in a lot of ways it's a flip of. We can go a bit further in this, but it's a flip of the usual thing of what Doctor Who's about, which is great. You've got some really good actors in here. Lindsay Duncan in particular, who is a favourite.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah,
she is.
Really is.
And she's sort of a stand-in for Helen Mirren, who they were first thinking of in this role.
Oh, really?
Which is interesting.
I did not know that.
Well, so the original idea for the special was that a completely different idea, almost God Complex-like, because it was going to be set in a hotel. where everyone has vanished and there's just this grandmother. And they were talking a lot about the spookiness of that. Like if you're in an empty hotel and you just hear a lift ding, like that was the initial spark of the idea that RTD had for the special. Now that survived as just imagine the doctor opens the door and it's Helen Mirren, but that's not really going to work. It's not like Nick Frost or Santa Claus, because it's just like, is it supposed to be Helen Mirren as Helen Mirren? Like he immediately second guessing himself, right? But then that becomes like maybe Helen Mirren on Mars, maybe she can play this Russian commander, but she'd actually just played a Russian role in a movie around then. Yeah, so then then we'll just make it be English, and then it morphed, and they were like, obviously we can't get Helen Mirren, so who's the most Helen Mirren like actor we can get? Someone of that caliber, on that level, and it's definitely Lindsay Duncan. I mean, she's been in so much stuff over the years.
I think they could get Helen Mirren. I mean, check with her agent. I'm sure her agent's like, yeah, you could do her. Like get Helen Mirren.
Maybe RTD already has. Maybe he's kind of going through his old notes, and she's going to show up in the Celestial Toymaker shop. Maybe that's her with the umbrella.
Rob, what was your how was your feeling when you were watching this in prep for the pod?
Well, I remembered it very well, and when I thought about it, I don't think I've actually watched it since it came out. And I got the DVD, and I don't think I've ever taken the disc out of it.
Until now, well, we're happy we were able to let you christen that.
Yeah.
But I remembered it like it was yesterday, and I really enjoyed it.
It's a good one. Go ahead.
Did you feel like you enjoyed it more? Because I didn't, and I often get this on this podcast and with Doctor Who in general, that the first time I watch it, it's just such a sort of like, it's so hard to take it all in, or you're like, oh, what are they doing to canon? But then the second time you really enjoy it, and it just always seems to be better. Did you find that?
It was a different perspective, because back then, if the story's going to come to a climax soon at Christmas, and you're focusing more on the villain, like the aliens, and it didn't amount to much. And there's like a little reference to the Ice Warriors, which I remembered. So unfortunately, I didn't remember the characters as fondly. And on second viewing, they're the best part of it. As a Adelaide,
Adelaide Brooke,
such a great fleshed out character. She's acted very well, and a very rounded character. Like her character has a past, it has a present, and it has a future. But which future that will be remains to be seen. I think it's
very timey-wimey, isn't it? Yeah.
It definitely echoes very consciously the first season of Tennant episode, The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit, right? Because you have the very similar sort of space base under siege. You even
Is that where the
echo
suit's
it
from?
Yeah, I believe so. So it's like he's got basically the spacesuit from that episode.
It got recycled so much. I just forgotten.
I feel
really
like there's so much bookending of other Tennant episodes, and we'll get into all of it. But I like that this is a bit of almost an upgrade in terms of the guest cast. I think not an upgrade. I'm not trying to slam anyone from the Impossible Planet. I thought that was a great cast, but I felt like for some reason, in particular, Adelaide Brooke, and I think her second in command is Ed or something like that. It felt like there were more grown-ups in the room here. It felt like it was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. It's not just a diverse cast and obviously multiple nations contributing, which is very in line with Doctor Who's vision of the future. You also have these great sort of veterans, both as actors and as sort of characters there, and it just there was just so much believability to it, even though it was like Day After Tomorrow, even though it was set in the late 21st century. The fact that they decided to do sort of more of a clean NASA type thing than a sort of a lived in, I think they call it a sanctuary base in the Impossible Planet. I thought those were all good choices. It's funny you said, Chris, about the budget, because I feel like this still looks amazing. Like,
yes.
And I think that I chalk that up to, it feels like this is what Doctor Who should be when they actually have time to make it. Like, and it's like, because they're
the full spread from the booklet.
Oh, there you go.
Love it.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, that's such a great shot. I love it.
Watching it now, it's blatantly CGI.
Right.
There's an aspect of it where you have to suspend your disbelief,
but not massively.
No.
Sorry to interrupt, Rob, but I would say not hugely. I mean, considering that this is we've come leaps and bounds since 2009 with CGI, and you are right. There are instances with a few shots where it's clearly made on a computer, but it's not. It doesn't look crummy. So yes, you're right. I agree that you do have to suspend your disbelief, but not hugely. I still think it looks really good.
Yeah, it's really just that establishing shot, isn't it? That Rob was just showing for the benefit of anyone listening but not watching. That was a shot of the Doctor looking at Bowie Base One.
Right.
Interesting choice of name, which was originally the original script. It was called Camp Bowie, so I could see why they changed that.
Yeah, it's not,
just a nitpick.
not as on the nose.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there life on Mars? Yes, there is.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
There's one pick on the. I mean, you could pick at CGI all day, but I mean the pick of when it comes around the end, and he has to get Gadget to go back to the TARDIS, and it's speeding through the Martian landscape. It's all flat, right? Like, because he was like looking down on the base before, and it was all like hilly and stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, for this shot. So
yeah, I noticed that it's just a straight line. It shoots through the dust, but
it just zips through. So that's like one thing. I remember. I don't think I thought of it at the time because everything's happening so quickly. Like, it's just bam, 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 bam. But I think it was one of those like, oh yeah, it's kind of like, the Jurassic Park moment when you realize the T-Rex in the establishing scene is like just over the thing, and then in the next scene there's this big drop that's in the same spot, and you're just like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any physical sense.
We would have seen that before.
It's probably quite clear who our favorite characters are. Is there any least favorite characters or characters you don't really like, or even aspects about the characters?
That's a good question.
The second in command with his O2 perfect stubble, who is completely humorless and sort of wants to be the first in command. That's kind of his only character trait, right? He's a bit rubbish.
Yeah, I thought he was fun. I don't know. The thing I like about all the characters is you kind of get them a bit, right? Like they each have kind of, not all of them, and I would say there's no character I don't like. I would say there's some that are just undeveloped, and how could you with this limited time and something like almost a dozen people? But the Doctor doesn't really get much, because he gets water zombied. In fact, the guy who eats the carrot, I forget his name. You would probably get even a little more there. But I like all the little bits. Like I think it's Yuri who goes outside early on and has the no trespassers sign.
Yes.
So you get a little bit more about what he's about. Obviously,
he's a bit more relatable. He's a bit less serious.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got the Joker. You always sort of have to have the Joker character in a base under siege situation.
You do, and then you wonder, oh, when's he going to die?
Yes, exactly. They're definitely going to take that one out. So it's interesting. Just while we're still on the characters and the presentation of the characters, this is something that's never done before or since in Doctor Who history, which is the presentation of the obituaries. Every time you see them, and I don't know if you guys did what I did. Did you pause the DVD or the streaming right at that moment to read the entire obituary before it flashes past?
I didn't consider it.
Not on this watching, but I have done it.
Yeah.
Is there any is it all serious, or is there any little insight or Easter eggs there?
Well, definitely, as a journalist, I looked at that going, oh, I would have given that a second pass. Like, that needed a bit more editing, and there are a few typos and things in there. But no, they do all have kind of interesting backstories, and it's like they all got inspired at an early age by this or that, or by their parents, and then they went to this or that university, and then they volunteered for the astronaut program in NASA, right? So it really takes you through the steps, and it's quite clearly an international crew, and they're taking great pains to be international, except that I think we have more than one from the UK.
Right. You could say. So, like, I remember there were like two, there was at least one pick at it. Again, I think it's just a fun thing to note, because I like the whole Dalek backstory with Adelaide that we'll talk about. But they do say the Dalek invasion of 2008, and then it's actually should be 2009 because all of those stories should be like 12 months in the future because of what happened to Rose in the first series, right? So that's one thing. And actually, honestly, the show is actually
unit dating controversy.
Yes, I was going to say that. Exactly that. Every generation of Doctor Who fans needs a unit dating controversy.
The show's actually been pretty good about adhering to that. This is a sort of a rare exception where it sort of forgot its own rule. The other thing I will say is like future web design, man, that's pretty retro.
It's basically the BBC website.
Yeah.
Like they've just gussied it up a little bit and it's very pixelated, like not a lot of pixels on the screen in future Earth.
It did the job though.
It did.
Oh, totally.
Jumping ahead, but when we have the flashes at the end of the story of the web browser,
yes,
saying that Adelaide's legacy is intact. From a journalistic perspective, would someone write that? You wouldn't say like about King Charles, the Queen's legacy is intact. You know, the timeline doesn't appear to be changed or anything like that.
Thank goodness the Queen died on Earth. I had this sudden weird feeling that she died on Mars. I can't remember why I thought that, but yes, her legacy is intact. She died on the right planet.
Yeah, that's what I got to say. I get they're trying to simplify things, certainly like with the language there, but they're also trying to simplify things story-wise, right? And this is kind of, if there's something that you could seriously pick at here, it's that, well, why would it be? Like now she knows her mother didn't die heroically in a Mars mission for some unknown reason. Now she knows she committed suicide in her own apartment because she came back. Like, would the legacy be intact? Is that the same? Like, you got to sort of question it. It's a little bit like, I remember, if you ever seen the movie The Butterfly Effect, which is sort of an interesting little time travel thing. And it sort of ignores its own rule. Like it ignores its own title sometimes, where it's like, he'll go back and change one thing. And then he literally changed just one thing. Whereas like, well, wait a minute, there should be a butterfly effect here, shouldn't there?
That was funny because for an awfully long time, I just sort of accepted it within the story and go, well, her legacy's intact and that's what we've just accepted. But the point that you've just made though did sort of niggle at me for quite a while. One thing I had always forgotten, and obviously reminded with the recent viewing of it, I think they just managed to skirt over that issue because the other two surviving members of the crew, I've forgotten their names now, but
Yuri and I think Mia.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. They give an interview, and we have a brief shot again of an online website where they actually explain what took place. So I think it's still a good point, but I think
under scrutiny, would they not be like accused of conspiracy? And
it was all investigated, Rob. It's fine. Fine.
All the cameras on that street saw the police box, right? So it's like, okay, it's happening because it's like the future. Everything's under surveillance. Closed circuit TV, right? It's all out there.
So I don't think this made it to the final edit, but in the writer's tale, there's a version of the script where he decides that she has to die because she doesn't die originally.
Oh, wild. Wait,
yeah.
The doctor decides? Oh, no, or RTD decides.
RTD decides. Yeah. I was like, he writes a version of the script, then he goes to bed and he wakes up and he's like, oh, crap, I realized it only makes story sense if she kills herself. Yeah. So we're going to have to figure out how to do that in a children's show, right? We'll do it tastefully from just you only see the flash or whatever. But there is this line about you see a flashback, and I'm pretty sure this isn't. I did do the freeze framing on all of the newspaper headlines. We got flashback headlines: mystery of location ... alien intervention ? So it is. I think they cut that, and I think they cut that because that just sort of raises more questions than it solves, right? But you do sort of need something, like otherwise she's just shown up on Earth, and you're like, well, wait a minute, wouldn't people wonder?
Yeah. Imagine the impact if it was a real gunshot instead of just.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. This episode.
Nice.
Well,
yeah,
you
just. You just, I mean, just to set the scene. If you haven't seen, like he at first, like that was why he turned down the idea when he first thought of it. He was like, oh, she should die in this, but then he was like, oh no, like she'll fall in the snow and there'll be blood everywhere and there'll be blood all over the doctor, and this is not good tea time viewing for the kids. But then he's like, oh, she could go inside and she could just be taking her sidearm out as she goes in, and then you just get the flash.
And because it's the future, it's not a Magnum, so you can
yes,
laser guns.
Exactly. Just there's so many ways to commit suicide in the future. That's my takeaway from Waters of Mars.
How would a young child interpret it as well? So
this episode
not so bad.
Definitely, like it's walking right up to the line of being like only for adults, right? And it's like this is really honestly one of the most adult episodes of Doctor Who, and it's obviously very dark. For a lot of the horror stuff is on full display, and I know they went back and forth a lot on the water zombies themselves on like how scary should those be, but I like Waters of Mars is pretty notable for a lot of reasons, but I think for boldly kind of going for an adult storyline and really leaning into it, both thematically and visually. I mean, it gets a lot of points there. I got to say, I watch this with my kids as I do every week, and it was my son is 13, my daughter's 9, and I think the fact that my oldest like loved it, like he was just like, man, was amazing. And Grace was like, it was okay. Not the best, because like she doesn't see Doctor Who as this sort of adult themed show, and she was a little scared by the zombies. I mean, she wasn't too scared. I mean, I got to say, like RTD, he found that balance, right? Like you could have gone a little grosser with the makeup, even worse with the eyes, scarier with the action, but he sort of walks right up to the line of it being inappropriate, and doesn't cross it.
I think actually that's something that throughout the whole history of Doctor Who they've been very good at doing. It's a family show, so it's got to cater for a whole array of different age groups, and I think it's always gone. I think they managed that quite well of just coming up to the mark. I mean, one era which is always regarded as quite scary is the Philip Hinchcliffe era. Those early years of Tom Baker, and even he took that responsibility. He wanted to tell good, pacey, gripping stories with a bit of an edge, but he always, there's the story of he learned this very early on. One of the things is actually actors. You can have something on the script, but the actors just giving that extra edge. And there's a scene in The Ark in Space where, for those familiar with the story, that there's a character who starts to transform, so it's body horror. And with the actor's performance, he went, he took that to the head of drama, who agreed, and then they edited down and pulled it back a bit. But the horror element's still there. There are still some things in classic Doctor Who where you kind of go, wow, they...
I think
they actually went a bit over the top, and you wouldn't get away with that now. Sorry, Rob.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I think going back to the Waters of Mars, I think because actually, I still look at the water zombies in this story, and I think they're a fantastic design, with the makeup and everything, and the actors that they, just that with their performances, and I think they pitch it just perfectly. Because me as an adult watching that, going, this is really atmospheric. This is quite creepy. And obviously it depends on the child, but I think most children would be able to watch it and still be scared, but hopefully not too much. So
not scared to go in the shower or have a bath.
Yeah. I am probably imagining that it led to far more children kind of playing jokes by dribbling water out of their mouths, as
probably.
like probably led to a lot of wet sofas immediately after this broadcast, and also probably led to a lot of people like reaching for their chapstick. Like, my lips feel really cracked now watching that. I don't know why.
Grace can handle it. She was definitely cuddling in closer than she usually does. So that was some scary stuff.
But the suicide at the end, that didn't really like register. Like, was it just?
I think wouldn't say it went over her head, but I think the way they did it, and the fact that it's a ray gun kind of made it okay. And
so it
she was
succeeded again.
Okay with it.
Yeah.
But she's used to having the end be like David Tennant saves the day, or maybe there's some sad stuff, but you're generally feeling good about the show and the characters you watched. And this one, does something different, obviously, like with the whole Time Lord Victorious twist at the end. And he's just someone you don't like all of a sudden. I don't know. Do you want to talk about that now? I mean, that's sort of the big twist at the end.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get into it. I will say I forgot this is where Time Lord Victorious comes from.
It's a whole sub-franchise now.
Yes, it is.
We'll get into that. But it's funny. It plays off a humorous line from series 1. And I think it's in The End of the World, where Chris Eggleston is reflecting on him being the last of the Time Lords to Rose. And he kind of just goes, like, sarcastically, yeah, I win. And here they sort of take that humorous line and he takes it literally. Like, it's like, you know what? I'm the winner.
He's believing his own PR. Yeah.
It's also a part sequel to The Fires of Pompeii as well.
Yeah. Which he does mention. Yeah, which is interesting, especially after knowing, the whole Capaldi thing. After
we all know that his family line ended when he killed himself in Torchwood.
Interesting connection. Yeah.
Well, I think Russell's confirmed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my.
He does like to confirm stuff that you wouldn't think that he'd confirm. Like it's going a little bit off topic, but obviously the next one he goes on to the the end of time and all of that, and there's all that people are wondering, like, is that the Doctor's mother with her head in her hands? And in these emails, he's just like, oh yeah, it's his mother. It's like not even. Well, what do you think? No, it's just nope. That's Mum. Clearly. Obviously. So, yeah.
He becomes Time Lord Victorious. Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. Going back to what's said by the creators of stories and what's on screen, it's a funny grey area when they confirm things in the writing process, and directors might have had a different intention as well, and none of it is, canon because it's not on screen. But
canon is only what's in your head based on what's on screen, right?
I don't really use that word with Doctor Who anyway. Yeah.
So we've been raving about Lindsay Duncan and Adelaide Brooke. I got to say, Tennant in this episode is outstanding. Like, he delivers the goods, and he very consciously, I think, at the end, is flipping a switch on his own performance, and he's his mannerisms, his tone is completely different. And you contrast it with the person at the beginning of the adventure, just sort of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I got my spacesuit. I'm on Mars. I love being this galactic nomad person doing adventures. And at the end, he's dismissing people as little people. He's talking about how his one line that, like, he just says tough at one point to Adelaide, like, tough, I'm in charge now.
Yeah.
And it's very much like and Davies has sort of said this in the Confidential interview and stuff, like, he imagines this is kind of how the Master began, like when he started using his power and realizing he didn't really have to answer to anyone anymore. And it's a really interesting kind of choice to have the Doctor start down that path. And unfortunately, in the TV series, it's never developed. Now, I'm glad Big Finish and the other media has picked up that baton. I have not read, seen, listened to any of the Time Lord Victorious storyline, but after watching Waters of Mars again, holy cow, do I want to.
Yeah, have you guys dipped into Time Lord Victorious at all? Any of it?
I've listened to and read a few of them. I haven't quite finished it all yet.
What's your take?
I wasn't that keen. I mainly got into it because I'm a bit of an Eighth Doctor completist, so I got the CDs and the vinyl, and he's in the books. And I thought, well, I'll start. There's these two BBC books, and they kind of bookend the whole Time Lord Victorious thing. and then you have the. It's quite clear where the Doctor Who comics and the series fit within that. So I've kind of dipped my toes in it, and I'm still working my way through it. But that cliffhanger to the first book was really good.
Yeah, you want to spoil it? Spoil it for us. I love a good spoiler.
Okay, so essentially, straight after the Waters of Mars, the 10th Doctor goes back to the dark times, and kind of immortality is like a thing, an aspect of life, and there's this race who's introducing death. Anyway, the story does kind of end where. It's interesting because at the end of the Waters of Mars, after Adelaide shoots herself, the Doctor kind of switches off, and he's not in the zone anymore of being the Time Lord victorious. But the books do kind of run with it a bit further. Anyway, it does end with the Doctor in this bad place again, and then the 9th Doctor arrives on these coffin ships with the vampires, and then the 8th Doctor arrives with the Dalek fleet to all come to stop him.
Wow.
So it's quite exciting.
That's amazing.
Into it.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
I like that you've only spoiled the cliffhanger because it's more of it makes me again want to watch and experience it even more, and hasn't spoiled how it turns out. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad they sort of picked up the baton.
Yeah, very, very, very pro spoiler here on Pull to Open. Perhaps to a fault, as Pete might tell you. But
definitely to a fault.
Definitely to a fault. But yeah, it's very interesting in terms of, like, we were talking about Chibnall's overall arc earlier. Now this is an overall arc, right? With what RT did with Tennant and kind of plunging him into this at the end, and it's definitely of a piece with what we were talking about last week, and maybe this is why the randomizer brought us here, with this sense of the Doctor really needs humans around him or he goes a bit loopy. And he just doesn't know when to stop, and he's downloading comics from the future. But he's got, I don't know. It's sort of like, it's almost like the TARDIS is an assisted living facility, and the Doctor needs humans around him to sort of keep him on the rails and stop him from hurting himself. And that's sort of like, this is an extreme version of that, right? He's just
a far extreme,
just going through a stage of grief that none of us necessarily go through.
But I did really enjoy that exchange between him and Adelaide at the end. I don't think I appreciated it back when I watched it, but this time I was really invested in the story, and as storytelling typically goes, you've got all the hallmarks and fundamentals of a story, and the protagonist wouldn't generally act like this at the end. So that it's like, when you listen to music where it, instead of having these progressive beats, it changes a beat and it kind of invokes a feeling in you where you like it. And it did that with this, and I had like goosebumps. And
yes,
I thought, wow, this is really good.
I'm so glad that Time Lord Victorious exists, because technically the next on-screen appearance of Tennant is in the Day of the Doctor, right? And chronologically in the 10th Doctor's era.
Yeah.
He's off marrying Queen Elizabeth. Yeah.
He almost kind of mentions it, I think, in his little rapid fire update to the Ood Sigma at the beginning of the End of Time.
Yeah.
And then that's sort of fleshed out again, obviously, in the Day of the Doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, so which is a little weird to think that actually, also he was a little chubbier on screen for the Day of the Doctor, David Tennant was. So sort of, not his fault, no body shaming here. Just saying
it was for a role, Chris.
I'm just saying that he's like super skinny here in the Waters of Mars, and he goes off and has a few weeks in a few restaurant planets, and probably brings a lot of leftovers back to the TARDIS, and and then we see the result in Day of the Doctor, and then he decides to slim down again for the End of Time. It's very, very interesting choice there. But yeah, it definitely seems like it was designed.
Ideas. Then I'm just having a tie up with the the restaurant at the end of the universe, and Doctor.
Yes. Oh, I would buy the hell out of that if they did that. My God, anything Douglas Adams, Doctor Who would like that. Yeah.
I gotta say, I think the ending of this the way they do it is really elevates the impact of the entire adventure. And I think it's kind of the thing you could only do at the end of a very successful run with RTD and Tennant. And because really, like, I think the story itself is already like a 10 out of 10 thrilling horror Doctor Who adventure. And he's sort of leaving tragically, and you're kind of thinking, well, that can't be it. And then with the twist that I'm going to ignore the laws of time and have this big switch flip for the central character, it expands the impact of this episode far beyond the story it's telling, right? And I think you can only do that at the end of this run, and because you have to sort of assume not just super fans are watching, and you have sort of a mainstream audience too that is at least familiar with Tennant and the beats of the show, and even they're going to pick up that, oh, this is weird and unusual, like, and this is they're doing something interesting here. So it's a bold choice, and really pulls it off.
It works even better because it's the end of David Tennant's era. Because one of the things I've always said is Tennant's Doctor is not necessarily a favorite of mine. Although that I'm not saying that I dislike his Doctor or I find the series during his period unwatchable, because that's not true. It really, and David Tennant's performance was really good. It's just that I found the arrogance of his Doctor a little bit unappealing. That's all. Especially because I felt that and the Doctors, all the various Doctors over the eras have been quite arrogant, but there was something.
Colin Baker.
Yes, or well, even John Pertwee's Doctor to an extent, and John Baker's
for sure.
That's all. That's always been a character trait to a greater or lesser extent with the other Doctors. But with him, I always thought it went up to another level, and it was never really addressed. And then really, you're coming to the end of David Tennant's time as the Doctor, and then you can do that. You can actually go, well, actually, this was an aspect, and let's see what happens when that becomes completely untethered. But it also ties up with also what you're saying as well, is because really this is a flip of Fires of Pompeii.
Yeah,
Rob, which you mentioned, this gets referenced in the story as well.
Yeah.
Whereas the eruption of Mount Vesuvius is a fixed point in time. These people dying on Mars is a fixed point in time. The whole thing with Fires of Pompeii is that you can save one life. Here you're flipping it, and it's like no one can be saved. And yet you would think that, the Doctor decides to completely poo-poo that and decides to save the day. And I think I'm wondering if most people watching this originally, or even if they're watching it for the first time, would go, oh, this is absolutely fantastic, and it's all going to be rosy at the end of it. But there's still that surprise of actually no. And Lindsay Duncan's character, it's not just that final scene when they're outside her house in London, which is a phenomenal scene. She realizes that this is all wrong when the Doctor has come back to save them. And one thing which I had forgotten about, and the really, which surprised me on this time, is when the Doctor's using Gadget to get the TARDIS over, and Captain Adelaide has started the procedures to blow up the base. And even the Doctor at that point saying, "What are you doing? I will fight you if I have to."
That was a great scene in the airlock. Yeah.
No, sorry. That this is a different scene, but that was a great scene in Rob as well. But no, this leading up. I'm talking about when we're leading up to the finale with Gadget and all the fires going off and all the rest of it. He actually says to the captain, "I will fight you if I have to." Which is interesting. Yeah. He's trying to save her as well, but he's gone completely mad with ego at that point.
Yes, I will fight you if I have to save your life, which you can see the justification for that. Like, what's the problem? I'm saving her life. Come on. But she's clearly, and this goes to Lindsay Duncan's acting chops, that she has clearly in that moment sort of achieved a sense of being resigned to her fate.
Yeah. Well, and it's earned. Like, this is what I love about the episode. This is nothing's out of nowhere. That the exchanges from the very first scene between Tennant and Duncan, where she's got her gun on him, and he's like, "Doctor," the Doctor, fun. Like from that moment, you like they're just two amazing actors. Like you can tell she's like, okay, I've got to do my job, but I kind of trust this guy a tiny bit. And then bit by bit, they have so many conversations throughout, and each one's more impactful, and she's getting more and more to her. And then when they finally have that conversation about the Daleks, and that he knows things about her that she hasn't told anyone, like she becomes, oh, I get it. And even then on top of that, you think that's enough. Then Rob, you mentioned the conversation in the airlock, and that such a wonderful exchange. I mean, like she's there and she's now understands not just that who this guy is, but the impact of everything that's going to happen here, and has to sort of face the consequences of it. And it's there where she makes the decision, and clearly, I think, because she lets him go, and she's like, well, I guess we're all going to die. Like, I mean, but I still got to be a captain and do stuff to the end. But this is what's going to happen.
And to your point, it really doesn't work if there were two actors of this caliber. I mean, in the writer's tale, RTD talks about the first read through of this script, and people are just, their jaws are dropping because of the way these two are giving it their all and feeding off each other. So it's clear that survives into the show. I mean, you got to think where David Tennant is here personally. He's just come off doing Hamlet, and not just doing Hamlet, but doing one of the best received Hamlets of the 21st century. Right, like mentioned in the same breath as Olivier's Hamlet. Like that is where he's at, which is so rare for an actor who playing the Doctor. A lot of great actors who play the Doctor. Very few of them have come straight off this like era-defining run in Hamlet, and it's interesting because of course Hamlet is such an opposite character of like, and I guess the Doctor is sort of Hamlet for a lot of this episode. He's like, oh, I don't know, I'm not gonna interfere, I'm not gonna do anything, I'm just gonna stand back and watch. And then by the end he's like, no, I'm all in, and I'm just gonna swing to the opposite extreme. So he must have been loving that chance to just let go that he couldn't necessarily do with Shakespeare.
And I think,
so let's
go ahead. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to flip. Let's rewind a little bit more. We've been raving about Tennant and Lindsay Duncan, but let's talk about the monsters here, the Flood, which is interesting. I completely, the first time I watched this, I completely missed the name. And
yeah, me too.
It's easy to miss because
I missed it until you just said it. In fact.
Yeah, so the Flood
the name?
Yeah, the Flood of it's the name, and the Flood is only named by the Doctor, seemingly at random. He says the first time they're named, I believe he's the fires are going. It's right at the end, and he's like, "We're not just fighting the Flood; we're fighting time itself." And it's like, the what now? We're fighting. So, but the Flood is the name, and apparently it was going to be at an earlier line in a deleted scene. So he was like basically I think her name's Maggie, is the person they get in the sort of life support unit and is sealed off in the sick bay, and it would be speaking to the Doctor and everybody. And would basically tell themselves the Flood will, conquer or whatever, say that way. And the Doctor himself would say something like, "Hey, you're who? The Flood?" And so that would be the name. But that was deleted. So, but it was not deleted from the other scenes. So, like, he refers back to the Flood then, and I think maybe one other line.
I had no idea.
It sounds better than fighting the water, though.
No, I just just everything coming down. I didn't actually realize that was the name of the thing. But
one of these days, one of these base under siege stories, Doctor Who really has to have a bit of dialogue where they're arguing amongst themselves about what the monster should be called.
Well, I almost feel like maybe Moffat's line in, I don't want to get too off on a tangent, but in Flatline, where it's maybe not the first time, but it was the most overt and clear time the Doctor names something. And like, it's like, okay, everyone, we're not going to have any debate on what this monster name is, because the Doctor's going to shout, "You are the Boneless" at the end.
I love it. Yeah, Capaldi does that a few times, doesn't it? It's a very Capaldi-esque sort of thing to do. Like, He loves naming things on the fly. Sort of a piece with his nicknaming everyone on the fly.
Anyway, how do we like the Flood? I think they're great in terms of
Scary as hell.
Scary as hell, exactly.
Yeah, the leaking water out of the mouth shouldn't necessarily be a scary thing, but there really is something about it.
What about when they're like vomiting water and it's like a garden hose?
Yeah,
A bit daft.
Yeah.
Did it work?
It's less scary than the dripping, I gotta say. The dripping is just scary. Also, here's the thing: if I have a pick about the Flood, which I think are great in terms of whether it's just you think of it as an infection or the water zombies themselves, it's that they don't make physical sense because they're apparently creating water and they're shooting water out of mouths and they're flooding the whole base somehow with water out of their fingertips, I guess. But it's like at some point, like where's that water coming from exactly? Where are they making it? You're kind of like
Doctor did say they could create water, didn't he? Yeah.
out of what? I mean, is it like are they just like there's got to be hydrogen and oxygen, right? They got to get tons and tons of that, which I guess maybe is just in the air, but that much, wouldn't you? I don't know. It's just like I know it's not the thing you're supposed to think about, but I did think about it when I watched it both times. It was like, okay, where are they getting all the water exactly?
they're just off screen. Every time you don't see them, the Flood are like sipping out of giant sippy cups, giant 7-Eleven like big gulps.
Put a bunch of big gulps on that rocket. That's why they didn't have bikes.
Yes, they're just like hoses in the middle of the corridor. They can just pull one out.
Well, not to pick at it even more, but I mean, when they're flooding to literally flood the base from the roof, and they're more and more water, and you're like, it gets through eventually. I mean, if you think about it, that shouldn't work because it is airtight, and it's like, well, how could there be more pressure? Because I guess the implication is they would just build up the pressure, and then the water would eventually get through. But it is like, well, to have that much pressure, you need to be kind of at the bottom of an ocean or something, right? You can't just, I guess you could argue maybe they have some way to manipulate the water so it has more pressure, which I guess is like,
must be that.
Okay, but bit of even more of a stretch there. Anyway, still works.
But they are. I mean, so let's talk about their connection to the Ice Warriors, because it does. We did just come straight from the Doctor, the Widow, of the Wardrobe, where there was a very shoehorned in reference to Androzani, and this feels like the same sort of shoehorning, doesn't it? It's like we're going to keep the old fans happy by just mentioning Ice Warriors.
Do you think maybe they should have went more into that and maybe explained how the water was like a pandemic to them and they overcome that or sealed it away? Or was that implied?
Yeah, I think they could have had a little more. I think there was, again, maybe some lines taken out where he was supposed to sort of say something like that. And I don't think he says it definitively, but I think there's a line where the 10th Doctor was going to speculate, like maybe this is why they left Mars, right? Because if you think about they're going to mention the Ice Warriors at all, it kind of opens up a can of worms, right? Because you're like, well, wait a minute, there's this base on Mars. Well, didn't they find the Ice Warriors? Where are the Ice Warriors? Like, don't they live here? And
then it's a sort of double-edged sword, because then you would have had long-term fans or people, such as us, and going, when they go on Mars, they haven't mentioned the Ice Warriors. You would be thinking it anyway. So me personally, I think they get the balance right. They mention the Ice Warriors, so you haven't got
we have a language as well,
such as us going, why haven't you mentioned the Ice Warriors? It's the obvious thing. But doing it in a way where the story then doesn't become too continuity heavy,
right? And it gets people like us, like we can fill it in with our own headcanon, right? Which is like, okay, maybe the Flood was the pandemic, maybe the Ice Warriors froze it. Honestly, if I have a problem with this, because I don't have a problem with the whole Ice Warriors connection and how they dealt with it, I might have a problem now with the Flood, right? Which is that, now that we know there's this water virus thing on Mars,
Oh yeah,
from this point on. Yeah, isn't it still there? Like, should we never go to Mars because we could infect the entire universe with this thing, and that would be bad?
Just be sure to take the right filters with you. I think that's the moral of the story. Take your backup water filters whenever you go to Mars,
and do not touch those filters when you're throwing them in the trash. Make sure you use gloves.
Don't eat the carrots.
Yeah, we need Schwarzenegger to basically do a PSA on this. Take your filters to Mars, and yeah, well, I don't know. It's a bit weird because you're right. When you strip away the Time Lord Victorious stuff from this, it's not just a basic base under siege, but there are threadbare bits in the plot that is being covered up, but because we're so focused on the Doctor having this moral dilemma. Which is interesting, and it still works.
Yeah. It works really well. And I think I pick a lot, and the picks here, they don't ruin the story by any stretch. I think the Flood really works as a villain. You get it immediately. The one drop stuff, the zombies are scary as hell. All of that just works really well. This is really just kind of like how do we headcanon this away, all the inconsistencies. And that's the fun, Ice Warriors. Sure,
it is.
They're driven from Mars from the Flood.
Okay, speaking of fun, it's time to talk about silly robots.
Yes, it is,
and silly actors with gloves on.
Yes, that's controlling gadgets.
Like turn to the left, turn to the right, and then the bit where the Doctor kind of soups up Gadget, and the guy's like, shaking his hands like he's immobilized.
Okay, but before we get too deep into Gadget, you've reminded me of this thing of like, the Gadget is there because the Doctor can't operate the TARDIS by remote control, and RTD even says that in when he's giving full forward notes in the book. He's like, the Doctor can't operate the TARDIS by remote control because that was what it was in the original script, right? But hasn't the Doctor operated the TARDIS by remote control in history? Didn't we see that in was it Mark of the Rani? Was there a remote for the TARDIS?
Yeah, I think so.
The two Doctors, the second Doctor has it, but then the sixth Doctor goes, I've always wanted one of those, and the second Doctor, some of us have earned these little privileges.
Huh. So RTD was wrong, where he was like, that just, it doesn't happen, doesn't ever happen.
But then the thing is it's sort of, if it becomes a standard thing, then it would easily affect the drama of the show.
Yeah.
The sonic screwdriver in the modern era, particularly with the just wave it around and it answers every question. It'd be like, well, the TARDIS is here.
Well, I mean, you could easily just keep writing in lines of like the Doctor keeps losing the remote down the couch cushions.
Yeah, you could.
Where is that damn thing? I knew I put it in this pocket. Oh.
I think we've overlooked one important question.
Yes.
Is Gadget a companion?
Oh! He absolutely is.
He trumps a lot of people.
Yep. Absolutely.
He does. Wow.
I do. I feel sad.
He
got a key. You're right. Wow. He flew the TARDIS by himself. I mean, that's pretty companion-y. That's got to get him some points on the Pete scale.
Oh, yes.
What did he get up to in between that? He's probably got a few Big Finish box sets.
Oh, I cannot wait. The Big Finish nobody asked for. The Gadget series.
Oh, man, let's see the Gadget Chameleon team up.
Yes.
What if
Because it's interesting.
Disguised himself as Gadget. Oh, my
what
God.
If Gadget disguised himself as Chameleon? Yeah. Oh, no, don't do it. Yeah, it's interesting because he's sort of playing with the notion in the script of how annoying robots are.
Yeah, it's very self-aware.
Unless they're robot dogs. So we got that canine reference in there. But yeah, it's a Gadget is such a RTD step too far, and I can see him doing it, the writer's tale, and they're like, no, we don't need the cutesy. He'd just seen WALL-E, I think is what it was. He wanted a WALL-E robot in there. Right. And this was what he could get. But it's basically, what was that 80s film?
Short Circuit.
Short Circuit, yeah.
That's basically what this robot is.
So, as someone who grew up on Short Circuit, I'm sorry, I might be in the minority here. I freaking love Gadget. I think Gadget's awesome. I remember I annoyed my wife incessantly on the first broadcast of this and any subsequent watch, because every time I'd watch Wonders of Mars, I'd just be saying Gadget. And whenever we'd like be doing something like, "Can you make some coffee?" Yeah, sure. Gadget.
Wow.
It's just
my goodness. And you are still
fun.
married. That's the amazing thing.
The only thing I don't like about Gadget, I will say the sparking is so clearly CGI. It's there's too much of that. And it's really unnecessary. It doesn't add anything to what it does. But I like Gadget. It looks cool. I like how the Doctor soups it up. It sort of makes the bikes gag work a little better. I don't think it's terribly necessary, because they say at one point the water zombies can actually run super fast, and again, they don't need superpowers. They're already super scary, just as humans who can run.
Yeah,
and
doesn't he say water is patient or something like that?
Yeah,
water can be patient except when it's running.
Yeah, it's kind of like it contradicts that almost right away. It's like it's patient when it wants to be and to be scary, and like,
well, there is an imminent threat to them because the base is going to blow up.
Right. Yes, I guess there's that. So they it gets a lot more urgent. But there is a bit where they do kind of like stop running because they're sealed behind the airlock door or whatever, and the zombies sort of turn away, and they don't bother to run. They're just kind of walking away, which is kind of like, oh, okay, they're patient now, because that's better for this moment.
That's what they do. Yeah. So what else do we need to talk about? We do need to talk about the flashback.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I'd completely forgotten about. Yeah. What are your questions about the flashback, Rob?
Well, one thing I didn't understand, why didn't the Dalek kill her? Is it because the Dalek knew her death was a fixed point?
And if so, why did it bother invading at all? Because clearly that's not going to work, because she dies in the future.
Yeah, so the Doctor doesn't respect fixed points in time anymore, but Daleks do?
Even though they were trying to conquer the world?
Yes.
Destroy the universe, actually, weren't they?
Oh,
yes, Daleks do not.
Incredibly nerdy here. But
do it.
Yeah, in remembrance of the Daleks, even the Seventh Doctor says it's the whole thing to do with the ghetto blaster. And the Dalek blasted to smithereens, and Ace informs the Doctor of this, and he goes, good. And explains the whole thing, that had a ghetto blaster been discovered in London in 1963, they would have advanced technology and all the rest of it. Even the Seventh Doctor goes, even the Daleks would think twice about averting history to such an extent.
Yes. First of all, never apologize for being too nerdy on this podcast.
Yes.
Second of all, yes, absolutely. Like, I think there's headcanon this a bit. It's not necessarily that the Dalek knows there is a whole future history for Adelaide. It's more like, and I sort of use this same explanation for things like the Stone Dalek in The Big Bang, Pandora Opens, where the Daleks as time travelers have kind of a little, they're almost like Time Lords, now, not to that extent that the Time Lords have all this power and regenerations, but that they're a little time sensitive. They're a little bit, they can kind of feel things, like when the Doctor goes like, I can feel things across, I know all the Time Lords are dead. The Daleks have a little bit of that too. And it sort of manifests in these few places. And I kind of like that that's a little the thing they can tweak on, because it's vague. I get it, but it is established. The Daleks are these adversaries of the Time Lords. Surely they would have something a little bit more to them than just being kind of these robot tank like things that run around and kill people.
Mm-hmm.
And that one Dalek, he would have known that Davros's reality bomb was destined to fail.
I think there was a lot of talk in the Dalek podcast circuit at that time. Like, is this really going to work, guys? You have doubts.
I mean, there is an overarching question here about that flash, but about in general the fact that she, survived quote unquote the Dalek invasion of 2008, and it's not the naming controversy; it's the fact that anyone could remember that there's a Dalek invasion at all, because you established since that humans keep forgetting about all of these invasions, and
but Stephen Moffat hadn't written that into the series yet, so
yeah, that's true. That's true. We were still in the RTD era where people remembered things.
Yeah. We were wondering this in The Woman Who Fell to Earth. That was like, we know everything fell through the crack in Matt Smith's time, but then in Jodie Whittaker's time, it was like another clean slate. Like definitively, no one knew about aliens.
Yep, no aliens in Sheffield.
Yeah, and there wasn't even UNIT anymore because of budget cuts.
Did Miracle Day happen? But now, if you were to bring Jack and Gwen back, they would still remember that.
Right.
It's all a bit of a
and they mentioned Gwen. We talked about this in Revolution of the Daleks. He actually hooks up with Gwen at the end of that. She's off screen, but it's like, so they're still there. So I guess Miracle Day happened. I mean, the thing is, they don't even reference Miracle Day in Doctor Who, the series, right? So, let alone the Whittaker era. So it's funny to watch the ahistory or read the ahistory books try to contort like the timeline, like what happened in 2011 and when with Miracle Day
came too soon, I think. Like with Marvel, the blip or the snap,
right?
And it happened in time with COVID, and it's kind of their 5 years, kind of marries up with our lockdown, and if Miracle Day had came out later, it could have been the Doctor Who universe's lockdown.
Yes, the Doctor's
pandemic.
Yeah, it's interesting because what it does mean, what the crack in time does mean, is that the Doctor, thinks that he's changing this fixed point in time and he's saving Adelaide and, he's securing humanity's future and space flight and all of that because her granddaughter will board the ship, blah, blah, blah. And then a season later, all wiped over, all gone.
Well, this is a good thing to talk about and sort of tweak on a little bit because RTD is returning to the show, because it's interesting to be reminded that he was really trying to make it sort of this connected universe. And he definitively in his era had humans know that aliens are real, right? So it was like that the Christmas invasion was clearly a turning point for him. And then the world sort of becomes less and less our world and contemporary world, because now it's Doctor Who world and alien invasions are just a regular occurrence and everyone knows about it. So it's an interesting thing now that since they've rebooted a couple of times, are we going to see that again? Do we want to see that again? Do we want to have another go at a interconnected world where we're seeing definitively kind of a parallel Doctor Who world that's a little more fleshed out, a little more concrete on its own terms, but is a little less like our Earth? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I would like that. I don't think it's damaging to the viewer, for new people to come in. I guess Chibnall tried that. It was his fresh slate, so people coming in, it didn't confuse them. The fact that everyone knew about Daleks and things like that. But no, I don't think that's damaging to a viewer to come in to this world and understand that this world is different to ours, this fictional world. People, they've had invasions before and things like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely sticking with my prediction that RTD in the 60th specials is going to do some sort of timeline flattening, solution to everything that will bring us with one single past.
Well, it'll reset back to everything that happened up to the end of time happened. And then everything else didn't.
Wow. Yeah. Forget yes and. This is no longer improv. Sorry, everyone.
Timeless Child. What was that?
What? Pocket watch in the heart of the TARDIS? Huh? Anyway.
All right. Oh.
Well, I do actually want one thing. I don't want it because it's almost left at the end. We have, we're totally focused on Adelaide shooting herself. And we're a little bit focused on the fact that poor Gadget is sitting there in the snow and nobody's paying attention to him after he's just saved everyone. Thanks, Gadget. but Mia, is it, who runs away because the TARDIS is too confusing?
Mm.
Has that happened? Have we seen that before, where the TARDIS like basically not driving someone mad, but like driving someone away because they've seen the bigger and the inside, and they're just like, we saw last week where Robertson kind of wasn't, couldn't get it, but like running away from it. What you got, Pete?
I've got the cop on the motorcycle in the TV movie.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Wow.
He just kept on riding until he went into the sea, and then he just kept on swimming.
I am going to have to watch the TV movie again. That is not an instruction randomizer, but it's been a while.
But yeah,
so the randomizers took you on a lot of specials lately then.
Yeah.
What's it doing?
What is it doing, Pete?
Getting it out of his system. I think it's, again, that's a very good question, because that is one of our questions, and we're going to get to them right now. They are, of course, the 4 questions to Doomsday. The first question is exactly what you asked. Why did the randomizer take us here? Theories. Chris, why don't you start?
It is our destiny. No, well, it's clearly on a bit of a specials kick.
Mm-hmm.
And holiday specials, or would-be holiday specials. It obviously listened to both of us last week, which is extraordinary.
Right.
It gave us something darker, as Pete requested, and I requested specifically that it give us something nice and short for the guests.
You know what? I had a pit in my stomach when you invited us on. I thought it's going to be Master Plan.
Yes. Time Lord.
That's like every week. We have that in our stomach. Is this the week we get Dalek's Master Plan?
Yeah, don't put it in the
as well, because one of our dear patrons, Mark, all of our patrons get a voucher to pick a story that we'll review on the podcast, and Mark picked Master Plan. But this was months ago.
He's been incredibly patient. I don't know if he's listening to this. We will be reviewing it sometime soonish, so it is on the cards. But yeah,
but water is patient, Mark. Water is patient.
Yes.
So,
but
my theory. So my theory on the randomizer, it's a little bit ties into what I was saying earlier. So yes, I asked for a dark episode, and I think there's a connection here with the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe, though, in terms of structure, because both episodes tell a fun adventure, or in this case, a dark adventure, on their own terms. They're both pretty good. I think the story here is better than the Doctor, the Widow, or the Wardrobe, but both episodes also, in their final scenes, sort of reach back or reach out of their own story and try to do something more impactful by tying it to a larger story about Doctor Who and the central character. And in Doctor, the Widow, the Wardrobe, it's about Matt Smith going back and having Christmas with Amy and Rory and really connecting with them in a way he hasn't before, because finds out they've set a place for him, and cries, and it just really gets you. It's like, oh wow, you already told a good Christmas yarn, and now you're really doing something impactful for the character that I love. So like, this is awesome. And in this case, it's obviously a darker turn, but the whole impact of the story, I think, hinges on it, in that Time Lord Victorious stuff at the end with Tennant. You just like, takes what you've already been thrilled and scared, and now you're just like, boom, like, whoa, like this is smacked me over the head with confounded expectations of what Doctor Who can even do or is about. And I think the impact of both of these sort of depends on a very sort of similar device.
Yeah, they are both stories in which it is very clear that the Doctor needs companions. And he goes a bit off the deep end when he doesn't have them. But also, I've just realized you're just talking about this, right? That they're both stories about someone being saved who wasn't saved in the original timeline.
Right.
With exactly different, like, there's no scene with Alexander Armstrong kind of, going off, taking his service revolver out and, heading into the other room in the attic, like, I shouldn't be. No, nothing of that. He's perfectly happy to be alive again and home. And nobody's telling him that his kids need to be inspired by his death.
Yeah. Well, tonally, a good choice, tonally in both cases. I think.
Yeah, but yeah, again, a good example of I guess the randomizer showing us that Doctor Who scripts are random and capricious in themselves, and don't have any overarching message. Just it's whatever the story demands.
Well, certainly between showrunners, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Rob and Liam, any theories on the randomizer, on its choices?
All you said, and it's probably getting you ready for putting you in the mood for later on in the year with David Tennant coming back.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely felt that because we wanted to kind of bookend this year with some great Tennant stuff and maybe do some Dr. Donna stuff in the build-up to the 60th. And on our last episode, we did, what did we do, Liam? The Next Doctor, which was another special.
Yeah.
And this is another great one. I think it's a great start to the new year. It's meant to be.
Yeah. It certainly makes a nice pairing with the Celestial Toy Maker, which is how we started our year. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Good job, Randomizer. Can't wait to see where you take us next.
Moving on to the second question. It is, what if the evil plot had succeeded? So what's the evil plot here? I guess it's the floods?
Whose evil plot, though?
Exactly. Who is it? Is it whose evil? Is it the Doctor's evil plot?
Well, that's the other evil plot, right? Because there's either the flood, which is pretty conventional. So it's like the flood wants to conquer the world. And
Conquest or survival?
Hmm.
Any perspective.
It's surviving, isn't it? Already, it's already like on Mars and being left alone.
Fine.
Wasn't living a great life.
Yeah, but you're living. It's fine, but it clearly had plans to when it saw how beautiful the Earth is and how much water there is.
Yeah, you should like it there.
Yeah, then it was conquest.
Yeah, that was basically seeing the picture of Earth was like water porn.
So what tweak has to happen for the flood to win? And in my view, the most direct thing is that Ed loses control right before he hits destruct, and so he's taken over by the flood, and then now the flood is the shuttle, and then it's honestly it becomes much more conventional Doctor Who adventure, I think, because then I think the Doctor has to turn back, because now it's not just the base getting destroyed and Adelaide dying. He's got to stop the flood from destroying the world, which is fine, and you could do that, but obviously the choice they made here to do the Time Lord Victoria stuff is a completely different thing and much, much better choice.
So then that shuttle has to make it all the way back to Earth,
right?
With
water zombies,
with nobody noticing that anything's amiss on it.
This is the cool thing about the flood, right? Is that it's a little bit like The Thing. I
was going to bring this up,
and
I really had a desire for more tense moments, like who is the Thing, who isn't. And we didn't get enough of that because the water could have been in anybody.
And the Doctor mentions almost an intelligence, right? He talks about how it infects Maggie but doesn't make her disfigured, and somewhat he infers purposefully that they wanted to sort of get back to the others, and so there's something there, but they never fill in the blanks. And then you actually see moments like when they're all 5 infected people are sort of got their arms out and the flood's coming down on them. Like they're doing something, there's something going on. And that really harkened back to The Thing for me, because in The Thing, like it never speaks, The Thing, but you realize like there's clearly some kind of intelligence here because it's working against them actively. And it just gets your imagination going. You're not confounded by it. You're just more frightened by it. So I think taking all that, I think we can sort of headcanon that the flood, if they take control of the shuttle, they would be able to sort of pass for human in some way, either on comms or when they get to Earth. and start infecting
like
people.
sleeper agents.
Yeah. I'm just picturing this conversation with Mission Control over one of those crackly video connections where they're like, "Did you guys run out of chapstick on your way to Mars, or what's going on with the lips here?" Right?
Why are you all wearing balaclavas now? Or hold on,
and sunglasses. Bit weird. Yeah. But if the evil plot is the Doctor's,
yes,
now that would have to succeed if he doesn't have a nude there to remind him that he's gone too far,
or the Adelaide suicide happens just out of earshot. Maybe he gets in the TARDIS a second before it happens, so he never gets that gut punch that gets him to.
So he's back. Like, I'm gonna go solve all the fixed points in history. I'm going back to the Aztecs. Like he goes into the TARDIS, makes a whole list.
Adric.
Yeah. Yep. He's like, well, maybe I'll put that at the bottom of the list.
Poor Adric.
Sorry, Adric. Sorry. He's like, that kid embarrasses me at every buffet. When I next go to the restaurant at the end of the universe for the tie-in, I don't necessarily want to take him there. But
what if the issue was just simply Adelaide's survival and her legacy wasn't intact, and it saves her granddaughter was some great pioneer. We know that Earth becomes in galactic empire. All that may not have happened and may have screwed up the web of time.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the message that you can't change history is sort of undercut by the fact that Mia and is it Yuri? We decided it was Yuri, right? That do survive, and you have a happy image of them together in the newspaper or the online clipping at the end. So they clearly, so it has improved their lives, saved their lives with no apparent ill effects for them.
They were just little people.
They were just little bit. They didn't matter. So if it succeeds,
well, I feel like
sort of did.
What Rob was getting at is that if that web of time changes, but then now the Doctor's like, well, I'll just change it to whatever I want, and he essentially becomes the time meddler / master as he basically shapes human development or development of any planet. He feels like into whatever he wants as the only Time Lord left.
I got one for you.
Yeah,
I got one for you. If he does this, then he's judged a greater danger than the Master in the end of time, and therefore the sound of drums is implanted in his head.
Ooh,
not the Master's, because he's
nice. That's a twist.
Dangerous now. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Wow. If only we could go back in time and give RTD that idea. Maybe we'd have got a different end of time for perhaps for the better.
Who knows? We could yet be a part of the 60th special.
Yeah, I think maybe we did, because the Master becomes Adric in that story, doesn't he, in the first episode?
He does. He is very bad with food.
Yeah. Chicken.
Yeah.
It's very Adric.
You can't take him anywhere.
Yeah, that was John Sims' payment for that episode, I think. Chicken out of it. We're good.
I demand a carcass, he said. Yes.
Good theories all. We need more theories, though, because we have to find where is the Clara splinter. As we all know, Clara Oswald was splintered through time at the end of The Name of the Doctor throughout the Doctor's timeline. And we like to think that she's in every episode. In fact, she was shown to be in pretty much every episode in that story. And, she's there in the background of a Colin Baker story and of Tom Baker story. She's in the background of every story. So what is she doing here, potentially? And she doesn't necessarily have to be on screen. We like to sometimes think Clara Oswald sets up certain things.
Yes.
Could be the Ood mask.
I had two theories.
Go on.
Go.
Good.
Well, I thought maybe Adelaide hesitates to kill herself and then Clara just does it for this is for time.
Oh my God!
Wow.
I thought that's a bit dark.
That is the darkest thing that's ever happened on Pull to Open. Thank you. Thank you, Rob. You just...
I thought maybe she's just the one writing all these news or Wikipedia. And
Yes! Yes, young plucky journalist Clara Oswald just happens to be on there.
That's why she writes intact, because she's aware of the whole timey-wimey stuff.
Makes sense.
And she's downplaying the fact that Adelaide was found on Earth. It's like, oh yeah, it don't even
put that in the last paragraph.
Yeah, exactly.
Use the word. Yeah,
I like that, Rob. Because I think it's better than what my idea was, which was that this is the one adventure that she isn't involved with, because this triggers what will eventually become David Tennant becoming Matt Smith. And as we know, Clara loves Matt Smith's Doctor.
Oh,
so this is the one thing where she goes, sod that. Tennant can die.
yeah.
Well, that would make sure that she keeps him on Mars, basically, and just gets. I don't know how you would do that. Like keep distracting him so he doesn't walk off the base or put his astronaut suit back on to get back out. But yeah, he's got to be on these tracks of like being a giant egotist that he will die.
So my theory was pretty simple. I got to say, to pick at other things, that extra gadget robot that was in the crate at the end was just ready to go right out of the box. She is the space agency supply specialist that's making sure that these robots are just completely they have to flick one switch and they're completely ready to go out of the box. And she made sure that gadget was ready. Damn sure it was ready to go.
And she's actually, pre-programmed it with how to fly the TARDIS. So, because the doctor tries to do it by remote control, right? We know the Doctor's terrible at flying the TARDIS. He's going to be even more terrible at doing it by remote control. But the
what
programming...
if she is Gadget's conscience making souffles inside?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she thinks she's saying souffle's ready, but it comes out as gadget. Yeah.
Awesome. Chris, any theory?
Oh God, no. I mean, I'm just I'm so darked out by Rob's idea that she's shooting Lindsay Duncan at the end. She's like, cut to inside. She's like, no, I'm not going to do it. She puts the gun on a shelf and turns around. Clara's there, like, no, you must die.
Wow, now who's the master? Oh my.
Indeed.
Guys,
all right.
It's time for the final question, the only question, the question that everyone has been waiting for. What did we think of this episode? Now, the Pull to Open rating system has 4 ratings. They are the Dalek, which is what we give a good episode of Doctor Who, the Ogron, which is for a perhaps not so good episode of Doctor Who, the Professor Hater, which is maybe it's not a great episode, but hey, at least we learned something. And the Viscount Banger, which we reserve for the best of the best. And as good hosts, we are going to let our guests rate this episode first. So you guys, who wants to go first?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Hang on. So just to go on a ranking system, what do you learn from Time Flight?
You learn that Professor Hater cannot be stopped. He's there even after he dies. No, definitely. You learn what Doctor Who should not be.
Yes,
from Time Flight. How not to do a Doctor Who with 2 Concords in it. It's very clear.
You could kind of envision that an Ogron is they should have known better. And Hater is that. Well, I could see they were trying something there.
For me, I would rank this as a Viscount because it's
nice.
It's one of my old. It's not just in terms of David Tennant. It's one of my all-time favorite stories. I like. I like the story itself. Yes, it's very simple, but I think it's written very well. We've talked about it before, but I really like the actors, particularly Lindsay Duncan. I think she's phenomenal. David Tennant is really at the top of his game here. Graeme Harper's direction. The look of the monsters. I think it's got a lot of atmosphere and it's gripping. It's got that balance of the wonderful character moments and the drama and the action. To me, it's Doctor Who hitting all the marks. How about you?
All right. Our guest banger. Thank you, Liam.
Wow.
Good
The
stuff.
very first guest banger ever on Pull to Open. Thank you.
Yeah. Live. One done live. We retroactively gave Day of the Doctor guest banger. But yes, this is our first live guest banger. Rob, what say you?
Basically, just what Liam said. It was a great story. The characters were written and acted really well. It ended on a bit of an unconventional beat that took me by surprise, and it was really good. So yeah, I know you saved this score for the best of the best, but it was an absolute banger.
Wow.
Yeah.
There it is. 2 bangers.
It's 2 bangers out of 4. Chris, I'm going to go to you next. What's your verdict?
Sorry to be the party pooper here, but I think this is just a Dalek.
Oh,
It's a very wet Dalek. It's glistening with its wetness, and it's very patient. But it is, I don't know. It's just I love the Time Lord Victorious stuff. I think it is a wonderful way to present it. I just can't get past the fact that it is a sort of a by the numbers base Under Siege otherwise. And,
such gorgeous numbers, though. Such confident numbers. The numbers that we like to recite.
It is
great numbers, Chris.
They're pretty great numbers. I don't know. And when it comes to subverting base Under Siege, I think of things like Last Christmas. I think of Before the Flood.
Right.
It really yeah, exactly. So to really subvert it, I felt it needed just a little bit more. And I'm not sure what that thing was. It did well for what it did, but it felt like it was too much sort of barreling along in this overarching plot and, of the season and of Tennant's Doctor, and too little time was spent thinking on the other side of things. Plus, they could have made it in HD and they didn't.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of this era.
They may have upscaled it. I don't know, but there's the last.
Think they remastered it.
Yeah, that's what it is. In the Writer's Tale, there's a back and forth with the BBC where they're just fighting tooth and nail to get it screened in HD, and in the end, it isn't. So I'm glad to hear that they did so for the DVD,
the Blu-ray,
and the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Not so much on the streaming version that I watched.
Oh, you saw HBO Max?
Yeah.
The DVD transfer.
Yes.
Dude, I think
4x3 as well.
It was a 4x3. What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Really? 4x3 aspect ratio?
Yeah.
Maybe it was. Oh, weird.
Not on my TV, but okay.
Yeah.
I know a lot of stuff like on Amazon in the UK. Sometimes it was made in widescreen, broadcast in widescreen. Yet sometimes they'll put episodes of shows on that not widescreen.
That's why you got to get the Blu-rays every time. You also get that awesome extra scene in Last of the Time Lords. With the Scissor Sisters scene. Yes.
Well,
that might have been just the DVD. Anyway, we're not going back into that. So back to the ratings. So Chris, I think you are overrating Subversion a great deal. I think this is a banger. This is honestly it's I would say it is arguably the Tennant's best. Wow. I don't think it is, but I mean, he's got a bunch of bangers. But this one, I really admire it for going dark, for having adult themes, and then just sort of, like I say, expanding out of its own story and having massive impact on the show and the character itself. So Viscount Banger went out as soon as the credits started to roll on this one. Those are the first 2 words out of my son's mouth. Viscount Banger, he said. Obviously he knows the podcast and what we do, and so. I wholeheartedly agree. This is a banger. So we got 3 bangers and 1 Dalek. Not bad though.
I think that's about right. I think that's about where it should sit. 3 bangers and a Dalek.
So guys, we're going to close the book, close the Delta, close the locks on the Waters of Mars. I'm not sure, but the drop.
We're going to try and escape in the shuttle. Yeah.
To a random destination, and that means it is time on Pull to Open to activate our randomizer to find out where we're going next. The randomizer, as listeners know, constitutes two things. It is the Pull to Open Codex, which I have in front of me, a spreadsheet of every single story of Doctor Who in sequential order. But now we need to introduce the random element. Chris, would you explain the random element?
Yes, I would love to explain the random element. I also love it when one of our guests would do the random element this time. What we use is random.org. Which of you guys would like to go to random.org and help us find out where we're going next?
Are you doing it, Liam? Or am I doing it?
I'll let you do the honors.
Okay.
Sorry to spring it on you.
Yeah, sorry about that. But I'll just explain that random.org uses atmospheric noise and possible presence of the flood in the atmosphere to decide what random number it gives you, rather than an algorithm, because computers are terrible at coming up with random numbers. And how we do it in this new and improved Pull to Open 2.0 codex/executor is that Pete has a list of the stories that we have not done and how many stories that is. And Pete, what number are we up to now?
So, of the 302 Doctor Who stories by our count, which may not match your count because we count certain ones differently, we have done enough so that the randomizer number, so the number, Rob, that you're going to plug in is between 1 and 230. So 230 is the number.
230.
Now, really astute listeners will note this is actually 2 less than the number we had last week, which was 232. Why is that? Well, because I realized I was making a mistake by not taking out the very episode we had just talked about. So now I'm doing that. So we've gone down by 2 because we don't want it because the Waters of Mars is now time locked.
Or is it? Is it, Pete? Or is it? Or are we podcast victorious? Podcast victorious. We can fix this point in time. We can watch Waters of Mars again. No, let's not.
Well, we will. Just let's give it some time.
Yeah, exactly.
Podcast. But we've plugged it. We got it. We're basically between 1 and 230, and we're going to spin it up. Rob,
but first of all, we're going to give it some challenges.
Oh, that's right. We got to challenge the randomizer. Do you have a challenge, Chris?
Ooh, well, that was a dark one. Let's go. Let's switch it up again and take us to something light and a nice palate cleanser.
I wanted to pick Paradise Towers for you.
That
was, the randomizer picked something light-hearted, and there's a water theme.
Yeah, yeah, that would definitely continue things. Pete, what do you think?
What I'm thinking is, I'm tempted to just say Ice Warriors. That might be what I stick with.
Like Cold War.
Yeah, that's got some water in it.
Yeah, why were they scared?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's find out.
Well,
yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. Why not? Let's get some Ice Warriors, and it might even just be Ice Warrior references. That's fine.
And how many times the Ice Warriors in the classic series? I've confessed I've never.
So you got the Ice Warriors, which has some Ice Warriors in it. I'm told.
No way.
And then you have the Seeds of Death.
Yes.
Then the 2 Peladon episodes. So I think that's about it. Could be wrong. I think that you sort of see them briefly in the
Dimensions in Time. No. Are they in that?
I don't know. We don't. That's actually not part of our codex
yet.
We'll get it expanded on canonical stuff.
When we get desperate at the end of the show, adding extra stories, then we'll throw in Dimensions in Time. So Liam, you were thinking Paradise Towers. Do you have any other more general themes of where you'd like to see us go next?
You can play roulette. That's okay. One story. That's triple Yahtzee.
Yeah, exactly. Just put all your
we do that sometimes.
Chips on that Paradise Towers segment. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Let's spin it up.
Okay, ready?
I'll give you a countdown. Okay, Rob, are you ready?
It'll make my day if it's
all right. 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1.
I have a result.
What's the result?
177.
177. Oh, we're deep into New Who. It's going to be dinosaurs on a spaceship.
Well,
well done.
I'm so sorry, everyone. I asked for something light, and it gave us Mitchell and Webb. Okay,
all right, we're doing it. Dinosaurs on a spaceship.
Have fun with that.
Great.
Because have fun with that. We're out.
Guys, this has been great. Rob, Liam, thanks for coming. Guys, this has been Polta Open.
A lot of fun.
It's been so much fun. This is a podcast. Hey, listeners, if you have not subscribed for whatever reason in whatever app you're listening to us to, why don't you go ahead and do that? Maybe turn on notifications too, especially if that app is YouTube, and you will get notified every time we have some new content for you. Follow us on social media. We're at TikTok at Pull2Open, all one word, and we're on Twitter and Instagram at Pull2Open63. Thanks so much to the guys from the Cloister Bell. By the way, you should follow that podcast. Also subscribe to them, and they're all over the socials. So hang out, go ahead, hit all the follows and the notification buttons.
Yeah, Rob and Liam, do you have any specific call to action for our listeners?
We have an online hub, which is cloisterbellpodcast.com.
Excellent.
Nice.
All in one place.
Nice. Ooh, interesting thought.
Go check it out. Check out their Patreon. I think you have a Patreon, right?
Yeah, patreon.com/cloisterbell.
Yeah, we got to get one of those,
bonus
Chris.
episodes and video diaries.
Maybe you guys could teach us the ways of Patreon.
And you can give us some TikTok tips.
Oh yeah, we're here for it. We're here for it. All right, y'all. This has been great. We're signing off. This has been Pull to Open, ringing the Cloister Bell here in the universe of podcasts. Take it easy.
Thanks, and
bye
everyone.